Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington disappeared just that fast. He's back on assignment. I tried to reel him in, but you can't keep a good man down, can't tie him down as he is busy as a... With that being said, welcome to episode 482 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, where Charles and I will hold it down. We have a great guest coming in here. Get some updates on CIAA SIAC as they start running towards tournament time. Crossing past the halfway mark. Got some great races going on. Got some top dogs, both on the men's and women's side. And then we might sneak in and talk a little bit about the big game tonight up for the OVC with Tennessee State and Morehead State in terms of the men's side. And then you got an old rivalry, HBCU-wise. It's in the Colonial, as they like to talk about it, coastal as it is now, formerly known as the Colonial, I guess. Same way I do X and Twitter, all that stuff, just too much. With Hampton and A&T, but all seriously, man, that first game I got to watch it was a barn burner as it was on MLK Day, and boy, did it live up to the hype in terms of a matchup that went back and forth. Big buckets at the end of the game, and then a big shot by A&T on the road to get it done to win that game. So we might touch on that and get some thoughts on that. But with that being said, welcome to episode 482 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU programs and business of HBCU sports. Simply put, we just call it HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As we'll get it done, we're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live. The KCUH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper, as he gave me a buzz today. He's doing well. Shout out, and I appreciate his support and development. Beautiful home at Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, Charles, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Doc, doing well as we look forward to a lot of action over the weekend, but definitely, unfortunately, we kind of start today on a bit of a somber note. As individual that we know quite well, affectionately known as Coach Hurst, Coach Dr. Jesse Henry Hurst, Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Jesse Henry Hurst passed away on January 26th, but today he was eulogized here in Houston. But you talk about an individual who touched many, many lives in terms of what he was able to accomplish during his 82 years of life, among the first African-Americans to play sports at Oklahoma State University. He coached and taught at Prairie View. Of course, he was over at University of Houston. He coached and taught at Texas Southern University, a paragon at Texas Southern University, and a friend, gentleman who we saw many mornings as we came into the rec center to come work out. So I definitely wanted to send condolences to his family. Not only that, he's a frat brother of ours. So definitely want to shower his family with condolences in regards to the passing of Coach Hurst.
it's hard to talk about Coach Hurst from this perspective. He lived a full life and left a legacy, as you talk about, memories for many people on different levels. When I first got here and I entered into the department at that time was Health and Kinesiology. We now renamed it Health Kinesiology and Sports Studies, better known for us as HKIS. He was right there, ready, prepared to help me on my journey. And when you learn that he is a fraternity brother, because he's a smooth way to check you. What's that? Oh boy, but I miss it. And you hear about his stories, founding member of Oklahoma State actually was, second class to desegregate or integrate really more in that term. Oklahoma State football, playing baseball as well. People didn't realize, coming out of Jackie High School, legendary program, was the president of his class there. So he wasn't just an athlete, he was a scholar in terms of what he got done, sociology, earning his doctorate here, coaching 10 years football, and a professor at Prairie View University. So used to always ask me about going down to homecoming. He would sneak his way down there. His daughter went down there. His son-in-law is a fraternity brother of ours. Magnificent. They go to the celebration bowl every year, and he asked about that. He would ask religiously as we work out every morning. He'd make sure he wanted to know what my thoughts were on the Tigers, particularly for football. He did it for all the time, but football, he needed to know my thoughts on the matchup. He trusted me that much. He wanted to know my perspective. Were they going to find a way to get it done? And no matter what I said, if I didn't give him the right answer, he was going to be look a little bit at me, and just like, you supposed to be helping him get right. Man, you just asked me what so he let you know. But then military, 2 stints in the wars, reservist, comes back, man, just sharp, religiously taking care of himself in terms of what that looks like. What he did with track and field. Legendary people were at the funeral this morning in regards to, in so many different facets across academically, in terms of the city, sports icons, they were all there, politicians. And so you talk about a measure of the individual, but he didn't let you know that. You could talk to him, meet him, and until you like get a chance to talk or read a bio, you like, you did all that? Yeah, he wouldn't show you. So I'm glad that you showed that picture. But yeah, he'd be sorely missed. He moved on from being an elder into our ancestors. And if you know anything about Dr. Jesse Herbert, better known as Coach, he's going to let us know, and he's going to be watching out and pointing us in the right direction to make sure we doing what we need to do in one way to hold up the light, represent HBCU, particular, make sure we're taking care of business here at Texas Southern University. With that being said, we'll take a quick moment of silence, and then we'll bring you some more updates on the HBCU. With that being said, Charles, great way to open it up to really pay homage. We like to do that a part of our show. I'm not sure if you get that many other places, but it's a way to share some history in terms of the HBCU program, but we stand on the shoulders of giants. So with that being said, what's some other news out there that you want to share about what's taking place in the HBCU landscape?
Yeah, well, let's take a look at the 99th East-West Shrine Bowl. Will be played tonight. Actually, up there in Dallas, it'll be on the NFL Network, but on the field, 3 HBCU football elite seniors, along with a special selection of juniors, will showcase their talents, coached by an impressive lineup of NFL assistant coaches. The game is a critical showcase, of course, for the 2024 NFL Draft, offering a glimpse into future professional football. East coach Richard Hightower on the defensive side for the East will be Mikey Victor, defensive back from Alabama State. On the offensive side, the West Coast, of course, is Mike Kafka, but Aneem Dankwa, a Howard offensive lineman, will be playing for the West, as well as on the defensive side, defensive lineman from Grambling State, Sundiata Anderson. So definitely want to send kudos to those players who are moving on from the HBCU ranks, and hopefully they can get drafted. They showcase their talents tonight in the East-West Shrine Bowl.
It's all good. It's getting these texts coming back and forth. Man, I love the producer. He keeps me on my toes. With that being said, sharing some good news and some good insight. With that being said, it's that annual time of the year where everybody gets up and allows, sometimes I can say maybe rightfully so, where you get the HBCU versus FBS, what proverbially is called the money games. I don't even know. I'm gonna change the vernacular. I'm gonna call it something else. I gotta figure out a better way to define what these games are. Even though essentially I understand what that is. But you got everywhere from Florida A&M at Miami, payout of $700K, but then you have those that kind of dip down. North Carolina A&T at Wake Forest for $325K. Probably the average is right around $415 or so when you talk about it. Next highest is Alabama A&M and Auburn for $525. You also have Bethune Cookman at Western Michigan at $325. But you get the druthers. We'll give you all of those. But before I ask you to follow up with your last bit of news that you want to share, any general thoughts in terms of what preferably is called the money game?
Well, and actually, my class, we were talking about this a little bit today, and I think we've talked about this quite often in terms of what we have come to know as these money games. But you talked eloquently and spoke passionately about what is the trade-off with regards to the money versus the brand. How much damage does it do to the brand of HBC football, to the brand of the institution? But you recognize the revenue aspect, how important that is to the university. So for any of my students tuning in tonight, that is something that we're going to continue to talk about during the course of the semester. So it's a interesting dilemma, ethical. I don't want to say an ethical dilemma, but no doubt a financial dilemma to really pay attention to.
Yeah, you might be able to look at it both ways.
Yeah,
just curious in terms of just some general thoughts on your students. I'm sure some of them kind of jumped out of there and gave their perspective. Did they lean one way or the other, or were they just kind of taking it in? Anybody provide a perspective that you were like?
I think the biggest thing and the scary part for me is the apathy that can happen from playing these games. Does it move the needle that Florida A&M is playing Miami? Not particularly, because they talk about it from the standpoint of being embarrassed by the outcome. So, and that provides a malaise to the students at that institution. So, it's, for some people, at a certain point in life, 6 on one hand, half a dozen on the other, you kind of take a look and you think about the money coming into the athletic department. But the students, from their vantage point, they're not, doing somersaults about payout games.
I think that's important from this perspective. They're your current customers in some ways, right?
Yeah.
But more importantly, they're going to be your next customers and your longest potential customers you have for generations to come. And so if there's some concerns there, it kind of gets back to my perspective, and maybe I'm weighing too much into that, but I definitely think it's something you have to consider of, what are you doing to a fan base? Because you have what you call your denotation, connotation, as we just think about words, but you also think about this in terms of brand reality, brand association. So if you're going to market yourself that this is going to be a great team and great framework, and all they see, generally speaking, all the time pushed out there every day of the week, particularly on Saturdays, about these Power 5, now Power 4, some people would say Super 2 as the significant brands. And this is already above what you got to deal with the NFL. And they're pushed in that direction, but you're saying, no, your brand loyalty should be your team. This is going to be a good team. But then they be like, okay, they get into it, but now they see the score and they're going to naturally question, is this a good team? You don't necessarily take all in the factors that, hey, this brand is paying at this designation and this designation. For most folks, it's just a football team. And so whether you go, are 11-1, it's to a significant part of the crowd. They're not going to go that deep dive, whether you're playing D2, FCS, FBS. All they look is the total record. over a period of time. And so that's something I'm glad that they are recognizing, because it gets back to the research I even did 10 years ago with students. And so it seems like they're saying similar same things, if not even more so now.
Sure.
With that last thing before we get into this break, Rick Ross' son commits to Bethune-Cookman, talking about a brand association. William Roberts III, son of rapper Rick Ross, is headed to Bethune-Cookman. The interior offensive lineman has committed to play for Bethune-Cookman. Roberts III has played his high school ball at St. Thomas Aquinas, big-time program in Florida. A lot of people recognize out of Fort Lauderdale. He began getting offers back in 2021. At that time, he was getting offers from Miami, Syracuse, Florida International, Texas A&M, Colorado, and Albany State, all offering him as a freshman. The 6'2", 270-pound offensive lineman chose the Daytona Beach HBCU over Power 5 offers, such as Colorado, Marshall, Florida International, and Miami. William Roberts III High School, St. Thomas Aquinas, is known for not only being one of the top schools in the country, but one that produces NFL talent. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Kudos to William Roberts III and the proud father, I'm sure. Rick Ross, as he kind of takes off his hip hop, and now he just gets to be a father and celebrate his son. Kudos to him getting able to do that, particularly when we get to welcome him into the HBCU family. So excited about that. With that being said, let's take our first break. Come back on the other side. We're going to get into some of that basketball talk. Basketball. Stickers will be right back after this break.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
As technology continues to bring changes to the world of education, it's time we also reimagine teacher professional development. Gone are the days of one-size-fits-all learning that can only be accessed at a specific time and place. The Stride PD Center is an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that allow educators to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. The best professional development plans are those that include a level of flexibility and choice for educators. Whether you're a teacher, school, or district, visit us today to take charge of your learning.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Matt Washington is on assignment, but we have a regular. He's back now. We done pulled him into the fold. That's Herbert. You know him as he's over there on HBCU Nightly, and now on Friday, he gives you your basketball dose. We just simply call him the HBCU basketball analyst as he gets it done. And it's going to take us all around the world. We'll focus a little more on what we call the mid-majors, meaning the SIAC, CIAA. That means we got to show a little love to some NAA programs, especially Langston, that continues to get it done on the men's side. We'll know what you know about that. GCAC has a nice race going on over there as well. Might snick a piece of that. But it wouldn't be Herbert if we wouldn't get him in the follow-up segment when we focus a little more on the men and we do the CIAA SIAC. But we'll sneak in the matchups tonight, I should say, out of the OVC with Tennessee State. They got a big matchup as they take on old conference foe over there, trying to see what that looks like in the OVC with that Morehead State matchup. Team currently leading the conference. Then you got a big old-fashioned MEAC rivalry that is slid over there into the Coastal Conference. Big matchup where we saw on Martin Luther King Day as that went down to the wire. We might sneak that in the way. With that being said, let's get into this mid-major, give you the top 5. Let's do a little pledging of Herbert, see what he thinks real quick before we get into getting some of this stuff. That being said, nobody dropped out, no news there. But we have Savannah State Tigers 13-4, 10-3, getting some votes, as well as Kentucky State Thoroughbreds 14-5. Not on the list, but a little outside of his Fists Bulldogs out of Tennessee State. We're going to show them a little bit of love, at least give them an announcement, as they are hunting, if you would, to get into receiving votes, as they're 12-7, 9-2. Top 5, though, getting into it, since there wasn't anybody dropping out, receiving votes, jumping in the top 5. All 5 programs still there. Things didn't change. Everybody won. So they just stirred the curse. We do have a difference in a team getting another first-place vote and taking it away from somebody, so we'll tell you what that looks like. At number 5, Xavier out of Louisiana, the Gold Nuggets there, 14-4, 11-2, out of the Red River Athletic Conference. Are doing well for sitting at the top of the conference, but Texas College sneaking in there, getting some things done and some things to keep your eyes on. But number 4, Miles Lady Golden Bears, 16-1, 12-0, undefeated on the season. Miles getting it done as they threw a heart wrench over there at Kentucky State Thoroughbreds the following week, as you know, you saw them take them down. But number 3, Virginia State Lady Trojans, 17-2, 8-2. While Miles is out of the SIAC, as you know, Virginia State out of CIAA. They earned 1 first-place vote with 61 points, but they remain at number 3. Bringing us to number 2, Fayetteville State Lady Broncos, 17-2, 10-1, 3 first-place votes, 75 points. Stick right there at number 1. Russ Lady Bearcat, 7-3, 17-3, 9-1 in the conference play. 4 first-place votes. So you see, they did lose 1, and Fayetteville State was the one that gained that vote at 76 points. So it's closing up a little bit on the number 1 spot, but they hold it down as they continue to do at the top, the Russ Lady Bearcats in week number 4. Herb, take it away. Jump right into it. What are your thoughts?
Hey, man, I think the poll is solid. I mean, I look at, in particular, I look
Charles,
at...
you hear that? You hear that?
I heard the poll is solid.
Making sure you heard it. Go ahead, Herb. Sorry about that.
I mean, in particular, I look at the 2 CIAA teams, Virginia State and Fayetteville State. I mean, what can you say about the performance of those women's squads, man? It's I know we've been hearing more about Virginia State's run in greater circles for the majority of the year on the women's side, but the fact that you got 2 CIAA squads occupying the same space with the same types of record. I love what Rust is doing. I know a lot of us have encountered Coach Green. He is a unique guy. If you've ever watched HBC or listened to HBCU Nightly, he is occasionally a contributor there. And I've had a chance to see those squads play on occasion on HBCU Plus. And they play with a level of intensity that you rarely see in the women's game at that level. They're really intense defensively. They really get up in you defensively. They play passing lanes extremely well. They're very disruptive. And I really like what that defensive product that's on the floor. And they got some talent that can play at pretty much any level of basketball, any level of basketball, whether Division II, NAIA, or Division I. So
good stuff. When you talk about that, those programs, Fayetteville State, Virginia State, what's interesting to me when you look at Virginia State, they had won 6 in a row. Actually, 8 of the last 9. They had their loss to Virginia Union rivalry game. You know how that goes. Fayetteville State is in that mix. And so good information when you talk about focus on it. And, you know, Fayetteville State got it done against Virginia State the first round in terms of 69-78. But the way these teams playing, I'm interested to see in a CIAA tournament, can you get them to clash since they're in different divisions? What are your thoughts seeing them maybe face off in tournament, semifinals, championship game?
I just hope they're on the opposite ends of the bracket. I really do.
Which teams? Which teams?
Fayetteville State, Virginia State.
Okay.
Virginia
Okay.
State.
All right.
That CIAA tournament is going to be lights out. I'm just say that now. The conference is deep. There are a lot of really good teams in the conference. And anybody that's been to a CIAA tournament on either the men's or women's side know that it's a crapshoot when you get there because, it's a completely different game environment, different type of pressure on the line and, teams step up. It's not a guarantee that the favorite is going to run chalk through the entire tournament. And
I'm scheduled to get up that way, so I want to catch up with you and give you your thoughts. Let me let Charles jump here and ask a follow-up question as we got you here on the women's side.
Well, yeah, Herbert, I'm going to do this with you during the course of the season because I think this is really interesting. You got a good representation of NAIA teams, SIAC team, 2 CIAA teams. If we create this Dr. Cavil postseason tournament, which of these teams would come out on top in that tournament? And we'll do this during the course of as we move along, because I'm sure the poll will change week to week. But looking at this is pretty good representation here. Russ to Xavier, Miles. Who would be the stronger team and why?
If I'm looking at squads this season, just off a body of work, I like the Miles team. I like the Virginia State team. Rust is a wild card to me because, again, the way those guys play defense, the way Coach Green has had his teams play defense at that level, it's real eye-opening in terms of just how disruptive they are against their normal opponents. Virginia State's got a lot of talent as far as Division II women's basketball goes. I haven't seen a squad in the CIAA that has been that talented since the last Shaw team that made the Final Four run. They are talented. The Fayetteville State team is talented. That's not to say that anybody else that we were just talking about isn't. It's just when you look at them and you look at that roster and you look at the play, it just jumps out at you on the screen.
Who are some names and faces playing at the Division II level, NAIA level that we should keep an eye on that are special when they go out there on the court?
That right now, I have to watch more footage to catch up on the names and faces. But I can only tell you as it pertains to the actual totality of the product on the floor. Virginia State's really up-tempo. They like to get out in transition. They like to get a lot of primary and secondary break opportunities. They shoot the ball extremely well. And I think that has been their calling card the entire year. If you look at their roster, you see the scoring is pretty balanced. And that says a lot about how well of an offensive product they have. They share the ball extremely well. They move the ball in half-court sets pretty well. Although I think they're a little bit more effective in transition than they are in actual half-court play. I had a chance to catch a little bit of the last couple of games for Virginia State and Fayetteville State over the past couple of weeks. They're like mirror images of each other in a lot of ways. I think Fayetteville State is a little bit more effective offensively. They don't necessarily rely on transition as much, but they're both extremely good defensive teams. And I think that stands out a lot, particularly at D2 ball.
I did want to sneak this in for you a little bit before we transition to the men, but I want to take you to the major division. We're going to make this short and sweet, so this may not be fair. Jackson State out of the SWAC. Norfolk State Spartans out of the MEAC. And North Carolina A&T Aggies out of the Coastal. What are your thoughts in terms of those matchups? You can throw in a fourth team, maybe Pine Bluff out of the SWAC, jump back into the race, or maybe you want to do Coppin State, at least in terms of what they've done lately. They've been pretty hot. So you can kind of pick your fourth one. But 14 tournament parlay. What are you thinking about those 4 teams in the mix? Who you saying is coming out of that?
Well, we're talking about
taking a bar from Charles, and you talk about that.
We're talking about strictly from a talent standpoint. I would have to go with Jackson State, followed by Norfolk. Jackson's roster, I think the biggest thing with Jackson's roster is consistency. They've got a lot of really good scores on that roster. You know, Ken Evans Jr.
I keep telling Charles.
Charles. You know, the Coleman kid that transferred over to from Bama State. They are deep. The problem with them is that they're very inconsistent defensively.
Yeah, Reggie Theus and FAMU tell me different, but go ahead.
and look, you know why it's funny that you mentioned them, because I think Bethune Cookman has arguably the best home environment in the SWAC. I think I think those guys, and you know, to be quite honest with you, those guys are a completely different team with Zion Harmon running point, and he's in the lineup. And I think Jackson State kind of found that out the hard way when he came back.
I want to ask you that. I know that was kind of the men's. I want to save a little bit of the men's for the next segment, but from a women's perspective, Jackson State women, Norfolk State on the women's side, A&T on the women's side. Sorry, we wasn't clear with that. But from a women's perspective, because on the men's side, we're going to throw in Tennessee State. We will kind of ask that question again.
I would definitely I would toss UAPB in there as well.
Right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know on my show tomorrow we got a starting 5 that we normally do in terms of players that stand out. And you know, my colleague Liv for Hoops, who's one of our contributors on there, she does an awesome job at starting 5.
Yeah, she is nice. We're gonna have to plug her and bring her on this.
Yeah,
so let her know we got our eyes on her. She's doing a thing.
But I would definitely say we're talking about those 4. That's a toss-up. A&T is really, really solid. You've seen those guys playing CAA.
We can dream, can't we? Yeah, I mean, the NBA we get folks to understand about doing a mid-season tournament. You know, it's just 2 games. You know, 2 days. Yeah. That's all we need.
Me personally, I would love seeing a preseason or postseason tournament like that, because you very rarely get a chance to schedule those lines during the course of a year. You know, on either side of the ball.
Right. We've been looking for a Norfolk State, Jackson State matchup for years. Yeah. But we got to get into a break. We'll come back on the side. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it for the men's side, mid-major. We'll leave that, as we call it in the business. That's a nice little tease. Well, stick with us. Be right back. In our next break, we'll come back and discuss a little more on the mid-majors. I'll give you the top 5, see what Herb says about that, and give you some love. We'll extend this a little bit because we're going to bring in Langston, see what he thinks about Benedict as that SIAC East Division. Woo! That is hot. That's 5. With that being said, we'll also tease in a little bit of major, ask him his thoughts on those matchups we discussed earlier today. With that being said, stick with us. Be right back after this break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Brian Fulford. A.D. Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Lab. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Lab, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
I'm attorney Clinton Paris, and Tampa's my community. I grew up here, went to school here, and my wife and I make our home here. What makes Tampa special are its people. So when I represent someone injured in my community, it's personal. Call my office and speak to a real lawyer and not some referral service. I will fight the insurance companies to get the settlement that you deserve. At the Law Office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being heard.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentjax.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
You had a good showing.
This is Dr. Cavil's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Charles Bishop and Herbert Seward III as he's giving us his HBCU analyst work. We're gonna go into the mid-major on the men's side, give you our top 5. We had a team that dropped out this week, so we will have a change in the top 5. We'll see what that looks like. But let's get into these matchups. Dropping out was none other than Xavier, the Gold Rush, that were dropped to 14-4, 10-3 in the Red River Athletic Conference over there, but playing some good basketball, still in the mix in a lot of ways. But it's tough over there. Receiving votes, none other than Winston-Salem State Rams, 13-6, 7-3. Tough loss this past weekend, but they got a big matchup, as you've seen come out in terms of a hype video.
Yeah.
Wally Pip, and now one of his cohorts that he's working with, the young man over there, apologize, his name escapes me, as he put it out there on Twitter. Man, that work they put in that video made me want to fly out to go see Winston-Salem State and Livingstone. I don't know anything about it or not. With that being said, got a new team in the hunt. Texas College still. In the Red River Athletic Conference on the men's side, they've kind of edged up and have the victory over Xavier. That was formerly in the 5. Not enough to jump in the top 5, but playing some good basketball. A couple of teams hanging around in the hunt. Xavier Gold Rush, they're still in the hunt. They're outside of that receiving votes a little further down. And Miles Golden Bears, 13-5, had a tough loss as they are still hanging on the outside. Let's get into the top 5. You may see something familiar about these 3 of the 5 teams, if I didn't kind of give it away, that in the top 5, what do they have in common? At number 5, Morehouse Maroon Tigers, 14-7, 11-3 as they're red hot. Remember a couple of weeks ago, we told you they knocked out Benedict when they were top 8. Well, they're still winning. They were not ranked. 47 points, while a lot of the focus is on Morehouse for the football and who they will hire, whether they're going D1. Some people may want to pay attention to the men's basketball at the D2 level, but they putting in some work. And that saying at number 4, Talladega Tornadoes out of Alabama are 17-3 at 8-1. Talking about putting in some work. They did have a tough loss. They backed off a little bit. They're still in the hunt over there in the Gold Coast Athletic Conference, but they have some company trying to get into that house over there at GCAC on the men's side. As you have Philander Smith out of Arkansas putting in some work, 15-5, 11-1. They're outside of that hunt too. But with that being said, 58 points. They dropped 2 spots from previously being 2. So bring us number 3. Clark Atlanta Power, 16-3, 10-3, 71. They move up a spot. And you know what I think about Clark Atlanta. I'm just ready to start the bidding war. Let's do what we need to do, Clark. I've been telling everybody before it became cool to talk about moving from Division 2 to Division 1. You know what I'm saying? It's just the professor telling you what I know. Now y'all can just say it's the dean since I got it right. With that being said, let's go to number 2 as they move up a spot. The Panthers out of the SIEC. Number 2, Benedict Tigers, 17-2, 11-2, 64 points. Previous ranked 3. They move up a spot as they get the business right again. As you see, 3 of the SIC teams are in the top 5, but they're all in the Eastern Division fighting for that crown. Should be fascinating, particularly when you get to tournament time. At number 1, though, should be no questions about this. Langston Lions, 19-0. That close from getting to 20 wins, when people are not even snuffing it yet, they're already there. 13-0 in conference players, they run roughshod over many of the teams in the Sooner Athletic Conference. 8 first place points, they have them all, 80 points. Number one, the only undefeated program in all HBCU sports, one of the only undefeated programs in the country at any level are the Langston Lions. And they look good at the top of that NIA poll. They representing. With that being said, you see it. I don't know what's the biggest news. Langston at number one that continue to get it done, or 3 other teams out of the SIC, but I want to know what Herb thinks. Tell me, what do you think about the top 5 this week?
I think top 5 is right on point. And I'll start off by saying that it's very rare to see any team at a, whether you're talking about NAIA Division II or Division I, where you've got 2 not just All-American candidates in the backcourt, but 2 national award winners in the backcourt. Langston has that. That backcourt is both nominated for the Bevo Francis Award, which is like the award for the top player in the NAIA. Those guys are legit. And like I said, I've been saying this all year on my show, on HBCU Nightly, that Langston is a legitimate national championship caliber team at the NAIA level. If we don't see those guys in the Final Four, I'll be really surprised. They are deep. They're deep, from top to bottom. They don't particularly stand out in any particular category, but they're like in top 5 in, just about every category there is in NAIA right now. And just the total package of what they have there is, it's incredible because, that being said, that it's a big shout out to all the other HBCUs that are at the NAIA level, whether you're in the Red River or the GCAC or other places that are putting a lot of work. Talladega's always had an established program. Tougaloo College is doing well. Xavier, Louisiana, those guys are a perennial, perennial contender for March play. There's a lot of really good basketball being played at the NAIA level, and it's not just Langston. So it's a really, really good thing to see that balance and that type of parity amongst our schools at that level. That being said, the rest of that poll is solid. I mean, the SAIC.
We got another solid poll. We got another check mark.
I'm just making sure. Go ahead and ask a follow-up question since Herb is getting all these check marks. Go ahead and ask.
Let me back up. Benedict probably playing some of the best ball out there in the SIAC. We talk about the SIAC East, but what is it about the environment at Morehouse and Clark? How is it that Benedict went to Atlanta and went 0 for Atlanta? That turned some heads a couple of weeks ago.
To be quite honest, those are 2 of the toughest home environments in the conference in the SIAC. If you've ever been to not Howard, you're thinking about the MEAC talk. If you've ever been to a Clark Atlanta game on campus in the AUC, the fans are on top of you at both venues. And whenever there's a big opponent there, both places are packed. Those are extremely hard places to play. And to that effect, both of those squads play infinitely better at home than they do most times on the road. Although
that leads me to the next question, because just projecting out, I'm looking at Benedict. They got 4 on the road: Savannah State, Edward Waters, Fort Valley State, at Albany State. They got a cross rival with Allen, but then Morehouse and Clark come to Benedict, and I was just curious, could we see lightning strike again?
If I'm looking at that schedule that you just laid out, I think the trap game there isn't one we're talking about. I think that's Edward Waters. If you've seen that atmosphere at Edward Waters, it's no joke. And that team that they have this year is extremely solid. Clark, almost found out the hard way playing down there. They went to I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they went to an OT in that game. Yeah, and to that effect, I think that's a testament to the depth of the SIAC this year. I know we're talking about the usual suspects, in Clark Atlanta, Morehouse, Benedict, but the conference this year from top to bottom is tough. Yeah. There aren't any easy games. There aren't any cupcake games that you might, traditionally get where there's a delineation between the top and the bottom of the conference. Conference is tough all the way through. And that's even more of a testament to how well the top teams in the upper echelon of the league have played and how, the quality of those teams. Because, going on the road at Lane or Lemoyne Owen, which is, in itself, a pretty decent program. Savannah State can knock people off at any given time. Edward Waters is on the come up. There's a lot of good basketball being played in that conference. And I think, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to let you finish your thought because I had another quick double back follow-up question to that.
Yeah, it's just this is one of the better years I've seen MEAC, not MEAC, but SIAC basketball. Sure. There's a lot of parity all the way through, up and down the conference, and I think that's a really good sign.
Go back and you mentioned Langston, how they could be a legitimate national championship contender. What are the characteristics again about this Langston team that puts them in that potential Final Four?
Wow, that's a good question. I think, and I know I'm kind of sounding like a broken record here, but it starts with defense. Those guys are at the top of just about every statistical category there is at the NAIA level defensively. On top of that, they've got, I think they're one of the more talented rosters from top to bottom, at the NAIA level. I look at the backcourt, I look at Anthony Roy, that dude, if I'm not mistaken, he was a Washington State or New Mexico State transferred down to play. And he's been lights out, along with his backcourt. And not only that, it's just, like I said, you look up and down that roster, Langston, you've got legit D1 talent there. That is not an exaggeration. Those guys play a brand of ball that's very rarely seen at the NAIA level. And to that effect, I think, this isn't the first time that we've seen this out of a Chris Wright team. Chris Wright, right? Again, I don't know why nobody's knocked on this guy's door. I don't know why nobody, any at Division II or Division I HBCU, he could be coaching anywhere he wants. Quite frankly,
he needs to get that reset on the cycle, because right now, when you go see the basketball hire cycle that was last hired at the Division I level, it was all about getting those assistant coaches that were at various D1 programs. 10 years ago, they were getting the Division II coaches, and then 15 years before that, 15 years ago, you had the cycle where you had the runs where folks were getting these really solid NIA coaches that were doing well. So he just needs a cycle, I think, to kind of flip back. It's one of those things. And it'll happen, particularly if he gets it done. He finds a way to get that championship. I think a couple of more doors are going to open. To your point, I'd be remiss if we didn't do this before the break. Langston is number 2, just for the record, for those this week, in the top 25 of the national NIA polls. And Benedict at the NABC coaches poll, they're ranked just outside of the top 10 at number 11 to give you some indication of what Herb is talking about in terms of HBCU basketball. But I promised everybody we'd give you a chance to talk a little bit about that matchup tonight. Tennessee State and Morehead State. Morehead State is at the top of the OVC coming into this matchup at 7-1. They're 16-5 overall. They won 3 straight games, but nobody is hotter in the OVC than Tennessee State, that has won 4 of their own straight game, including a win over the number 2 team, which is Western Illinois, the 6-6-2. Tennessee State Tigers are just 2 games back of Morehead State. So this is a huge game because of you setting the stage. Tennessee State comes in at 5-3 in terms of their conference record, and 12-9 overall. What are your thoughts a little bit about this matchup? And then obviously you have the matchup where we don't have to really get into the records, but you have A&T and Hampton that we're also going to keep your eyes on, as that was a classic matchup, as we said, that went down the buzzer. What do you think, your thoughts on the men's side of those two matchups at the major division level?
Well, I think, start with Tennessee State. And I believe I said this again at the very beginning of the year, preseason, that Tennessee State is arguably the most talented basketball team at the Division I level amongst HBCUs. And just looking at what they did in the transfer portal, who they brought in, the transfer and recruiting class that they brought in, we're starting to see a lot of that come to fruition now, in conference and the way they're playing. They could always score the ball. They're extremely talented offensively. Whether you're talking about Christian Brown, who was, stalwart from last year, the transfers from Belmont, E.J. Bellinger, Michael Shanks coming off the bench, the big transfer from Florida, big guy, Jason Jatobo, who's really kind of solidified how they want to play physically in the middle in OVC ball. He's been a difference maker. Those guys are explosive. They're an explosive team offensively. You don't want to get these guys in transition. If you get these guys in transition and you're not getting back, it's going to be a long night. And the last couple of games that we've seen out of them during this run streak, they've done a really good job of translating turnovers into transition opportunities, meaning that they've been extremely disruptive on the defensive end of the court, turn folks over, and it turns into automatic points on the other end. So it's the fact that they're playing this well at this stage of the season bodes well for not only tournament time, but their quest for regular season titles. I think that's well within reach, the way they're playing.
Good stuff. Before we take our next break, did want to acknowledge, as you talked about, sneaking in there and watching a little bit in the background, Hampton Pirates, North Carolina A&T. So I don't know if you want to get the second half where you're going to be able to stick with us, but we certainly understand. We'll talk about that in the break. But game leaders, as they are tied at half, 25-25. So if this is any indication, this is going down like the first.
It's like the first.
Nesbitt in first half has 6 points. He's 3 of 4. You have Murphy that has 7 points, and he's 3 of 6. Rebound leaders are Dang with 6 rebounds. That's all defensive rebounds. And Chittifus is 6 rebounds, 4 defense and 2 offensive. Nesbitt, in terms of assists, getting it done as well with 2 assists. He does have 2 turnovers. And you have Shell that has 3 assists, just 1 turnover. Give you some indicator of what's taking place with that. Let's go into our last break. We'll come back on the other side, give a little more final takes before we get into the break. For those, make sure you tune in tomorrow for HBCU Nightly. It's Herb and his team, as you heard about. All his team getting in there and going to give you all that HBCU talk. With that being said, let's take our last break. We'll come back on the other side.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentjax.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Cavil's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Cavil's Voice, Cavil's Voice, Cavil'sVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Nope. want him.
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want to law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bills inside the HBCU Sports Lab. And I was just saying love because we got a little love for Herbert because he did us a favor and he stood over to this last segment to get into some of this MEAC SWAC basketball stuff. As we get into that, one of the MEAC games is the Legacy Classic, which features Hampton and Howard. Obviously, Howard not out of the MEAC, but it's a classic matchup. So you have Thursday, they're going against A&T. Then they got to ship up and go and be ready for the HU battle on the hardwood against Howard. So I think I'm intrigued about that, what that looks like. And then the other matchup probably is that Delaware State, Norfolk State. Delaware State had two tough losses, obviously. But they got a chance to be able to make a next statement. And it would be a big one because it's on the road. What are your thoughts on those two matchups out of the MEAC?
Oh, man. I think the Hampton Howard matchup is going to be a bit more entertaining than people think. We were talking about some of the stats in the break from Hampton from this past game that's going on with A&T right now. There's a kid on Hampton's roster, Jerry Ding, young cat import. He's got a really, really bright future. Dude he's a swing man, plays 2-3, plays to 2, plays to 3. Really, really mature offensive game. I think he's going to have a chance to really be showcased this weekend during this game. I look at Howard and, there's still a lot of talent on that roster. I know the transfers that left with Elijah Hawkins and Steve Self III really changed the makeup of that squad. But there's still a lot of offensive firepower on that roster. Whether you're talking about Seth Towns, whether you're talking about Marcus Dockery, at the 2 slot. I think the big thing for those guys is getting consistent point guard play from that squad. When the point guards are playing well, they're extremely hard to deal with. It's when point guards aren't playing well that Howard has kind of faltered this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see, which part of that Jekyll and Hyde equation turns up, during their game. As far as the second matchup goes, man, this weekend, Delaware State, Norfolk, that's going to be at Eccles, and that's going to be a tough as nails game. 2 really, really tough defensive teams, 2 really good backcourts. Anybody that hasn't seen Delaware State this year, this isn't the same old Delaware State. Coach Waterman has really started to impose his philosophy on the squad defensively. The 2 guys they got in the backcourt, Javen Money, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Javen Muniz and Martaz Robinson. To me, they're one of the best tandems in the conference, in terms of guards. They really make it tough on opponents defensively. I can't emphasize that enough. Those guys have, anytime you see those guys play, they make it hard for you to get around them in passing lanes. It's hard to get around them in terms of getting to your spots dribbling. They're really good tandem defensively. Conversely, I think
Charles, you want to jump in there and ask the question before we flip it to the SWAC?
Well,
I do want to make this note in terms of your point on Delaware State. They had that win over Bethune Cookman and see what they're doing in the SWAC in that Brock Challenge 72-64. So while the SWAC had the edge over the MEAC, it wasn't the fault of Delaware State. They got a big win. Go ahead, Charles.
No, I was going to shift gears to the SWAC because I know we're up against the top of the hour, but just curious in terms of what matchups in the SWAC should we be paying attention to this weekend?
I'm interested in seeing how Alabama State bounces back after the Texas road trip. Like I said, I think just about every matchup this weekend in the conference is going to have implications because of just the nature of what the conference race is right now. Like I said earlier, there's a road jam, a traffic jam at the top of the conference. You got 3 squads that are 5-2. Texas Southern is in between that sandwich at 4-3 after this past weekend, 5-3 rather, and then you got another number of squads that are at 4-3. So I don't think there's one specific game that's going to really that really stands out because I think all of them are big. I think particularly for this week.
I think that's well said. When you talk about the fact you got the Legacy Classic with Jackson State that is coming off 2 tough losses, Grambling with the loss of both those teams are eager to get the win back and get the win forward. And Grambling is at the top of the conference tied with Southern Alabama State, so they don't want to let anything go. You got the rivalry match for Prairie View and Texas Southern is down in Prairie View. Prairie View wants to get it going as they need to find a way to build and stack some wins. But Texas Southern has 2 straight wins, playing pretty solid, and they're just a half a game out of first. And while they dominated in the tournament with 3 straight, they haven't got the elusive regular season crown. So I know they're in the hunt and looking at what they can get there. So perfect in terms of how you broke that down in regards to some key matchups. Keep your eyes on the swivel, as they said, in terms of the SWAC. And then you have the Florida schools going to Alabama. Bethune Cookman at Alabama State, FAMU at Alabama A&M. Those should be fascinating there as well in terms of some of those key matchups. Give your final thoughts, and then we'll give it a close.
Yeah, I think you just mentioned it. I think, Bethune Cookman and Alabama State stands out to me as a game on the road. It's going to be, we already know how tough Bethune has been at home. It's going to be interesting to see whether they can translate that to, another really good home environment at Alabama State. And out of the teams that are in the top echelon of the conference in that 5-2, jumble at the top, I think Alabama State, if they can get the offensive game consistent enough, I think they have an inside track to the title, to the regular season title. Just by the way they play defense, they really, they've been the most consistent defensive team out of anybody I've seen in the conference. They do what they do extremely well. They don't turn the ball over a lot with their guards. CJ Hines, the Smith kid, that rotation is really solid with the rock in terms of really protecting it.
Yeah.
And the question becomes is whether or not they can get production on the block with Alabama State, because it's sometimes they get really reliant on the 3 ball and they can be really sneaky. With Bethune, it's the opposite. They keep the ball extremely well. One other team though that in SWAC play that I would be remiss if I didn't mention these guys. That's UAPB, man. Those guys, I'm just going to put this disclaimer out for people that haven't seen UAPB this year. If you're not running those guys off the 3-point line, you're doing so at your own peril. Those guys,
they got hot last.
Those guys are absolutely lethal if you give them opportunities to set and really get clean looks. What they did to Grambling on the road was just ridiculous. It didn't, you're talking about a squad that was shooting 75% from the 3-point arc in the first half and finished above 55% for the game.
As you talk about that, we were sitting on the court side watching the game in terms of Bethune Cookman Alcorn, which is another matchup when you talk about just keep your head on the swivel and the SWAC. Alcorn has won 3 straight. Southern obviously is tied for first, and they won 2 straight. But what they, which is a key matchup, but what Alcorn was able to get done against Bethune Cookman was fascinating. We're watching that game because it's going down the stretch. We're watching Alabama State and Texas Southern live, but we're getting the score updates, and I'm looking at Charles. I say, what is going on in Grambling with Pine Bluff? So to your point, you're right. With that being said, we're going to close it down. Great comments for her. Make sure you check him out tomorrow. You see how he gets into it, and he brings in the other basketball heads. And, man, it's some good information to listen to if you really want to get some good insight on your HBCU basketball, the move outside of just the team that you pull for, and kind of look at some key matchups. You can get it right there tomorrow night, HBCU Nightly. Herb, what time do y'all start it off?
HBCU Hoops Weekly starts off at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So, normally myself, Melvin, who's the founder of HBCU Pass and Live for Hoops, we're normally the core group. On occasion, we'll have Josh drop in, who's one of our founders of HBCU Nightly, as well as hopefully we'll be having our very own Coach Payne, join us on the crew on occasion. I know his schedule has been really, really busy. So, but yeah, man, that's why we do it. That's why we do it on Friday nights, because HBCU basketball is worth showcasing, and it's worth being able to highlight these kids and give them a platform to really examine how great of a product HBCU basketball is.
Awesome. That'll do it. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. Well said by Herbert, HBCU basketball analyst. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We hope you enjoyed it. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. Just finished week 4. Getting into week 5. It should be interesting. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, DrKenyattaCavil. That's DrKenyattaCavil. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Lecture? Her?
Dismissed.
Great job.